Right now, they want to welcome to the program from Rick's Firearm Academy of Detroit, Mr. Rick Ector. How you doing, sir?
Mr. Tam, I am doing great. How are you doing this evening?
I'm excellent. It's good talking to you again.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to be on the show. I've always have been very gracious when an invitation has been extended to me, and I'm glad to be here tonight.
Well, look, we love talking to you about what's going on in Detroit. It's not a very happy subject, but the Daily, which is the newspaper for the iPad that Rupert Murdoch puts out, had a big story yesterday. 911 is a joke was the headline. Detroit citizens no longer rely on police as self-defense killing skyrocket, the subhead. And talking about the local rate of self-defense, justifiable homicides, has climbed 79% from 2010 to 2011. There were 34 justifiable homicides in Detroit last year. That is, again, we're talking almost 3 a month.
Right?
The number of defensive gun uses, Rick, have to be far higher than that. One of the reasons that the Daily points out is that the police staffing in Detroit is now at some really atrocious levels. The average response time for a priority one call, somebody's breaking down your door and you call 911, is 24 minutes. That is incredible.
Well, a couple of things. I mean, you rattled out a lot of stats, but let me just flesh it out and give it some more detail. First and foremost, when we talk about the justified homicides, the DPD, Detroit Police Department, is claiming, okay, well, there were 344 homicides. But when you add in the 34 justifiable homicides, it's 378. There was some local controversy here as to whether justified homicides should be included in the total count. And the measure that I use, I say, well, okay, if all 378 homicides were justified, would we say that the homicide count was zero? And if the answer is no, then I think we got to use the 378 figure.
Yeah.
And right off the bat, you just mentioned the police response rate of being 24 minutes. The very last time I was on this show, we were talking about that incident in which a person who owned some property in Detroit was checking up on it, making sure that everything was okay. And this was a story in which this guy pulled two guns and held two invaders at bay for 90 minutes, and the police failed to respond. So that 24-minute average response time, it's questionable because even we discussed that on the air the last time I was on the show.
Wow. And so, Rick, are you seeing more interest from citizens, residents there in Detroit who are concerned and they do want to be able to protect themselves? I mean, how is I know we've talked over the past couple of years. You have had really steady business, but is the increase still taking place?
I've seen a dramatic increase in terms of enrollment, not only in the classes that I provide, but just general participation at the local gun ranges. When I take the classes, the participants to the range, man, the ranges are just completely full, and it's been running that way at least since the beginning of the year. I mean, it's a good thing to see on the one hand because it says to me that citizens are now willing to take on more responsibility for their safety. They realize that the police aren't everywhere, can't be everywhere, and they're rolling out these crazy programs like one that they're officially starting tomorrow. They're rolling out this concept of virtual police precincts where they're not even going to be open to the public after 4 o'clock. After 4 o'clock, you as a citizen can't go into a police station. You're to pick up one of these phones and be directed to a virtual police officer who's going to resolve your non-emergency for you over the phone, which is totally hilarious. As a firearms instructor, personal protection guy, I tell my students, hey, if you're involved in a life-threatening situation, someone's trying to carjack you, trying to follow you, dial 911 and go to the police station.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't even know what to tell them now.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you've got these precincts closing at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, what's the advice from law enforcement in Detroit? Have you talked to anybody, Rick?
You know what? We haven't gotten a response on that. But you know what? We don't get a lot of responses from the police on a lot of things. I remember one time, the last time I was talking to you, I was telling you that back in late November, that 16 police officers in the Northeast District walked off the job because there were rumors that there was going to be 10% pay cuts to balance our budget. Well, still haven't heard what they've done with these officers as far as discipline. So I'm not going to be holding my breath in terms of waiting for Detroit police to get back to us and tell us, what they're going to do about anything.
Right, right. The some of the quotes in the Daily story. There was a quote from a 73-year-old woman named Julia Brown. She says that the last time she called the police, they didn't even show up until the next day, and that's when she became a right to carry holder. And she said she's prepared to use her firearm against the young thugs who have taken over her neighborhood, burglarizing entire blocks, shooting at each other at will, and terrorizing the elderly with impunity. She says, quote, "I don't intend to be one of their victims. I'm planning on taking one out." While I admire Julia Brown's courage and her pluck, it's I got to tell you, it's really sad, Rick, that this 73-year-old woman is living in a neighborhood that has been, in essence, taken over by the bad guys, and she is far from the only one. Is it hard for people who don't live in Detroit to understand what's going on in Detroit?
I really think it does because, if you've lived here your entire life like I have, it's always been violent. It's been a violent town ever since I had my earliest memories, man. It's just a tough town. It's just that now, during this day and era of shrinking budgets, less police officers, more crime, you got lenient judges, we're emptying out the prisons. I mean, this is probably the worst it's ever been in my memory as a lifelong Detroit resident. And it's really sad to say that we have, seniors such as the 73-year-old lady that you're quoting from in the article, that she, has been literally forced to take on this more involved role in her personal protection. But, hey, the situation is what it is, and I applaud her for taking, proactive measures to protect herself because for the longest while, that's been my mantra, my clarion call, man. Hey, police can't be here. They're not going to be there. Don't count on them being there. It's a firearm is a tool of last resort, and if you absolutely positively need it, have it and use it to survive until they get there, whenever they do.
Again, talking with Rick Ector from Rick's Firearm Academy of Detroit. In terms of the new customers that you're seeing, Rick, are these people who are new gun owners as well? Are they people who have been gun owners for a while and now want to be able to carry, a mix of both? Is there a stereotypical new student coming into your class right now?
The typical person that I'm getting now, man, is first-time gun owners. Totally green, never seen a firearm before. Were really wrestling with the decision as to whether they even could picture themselves as a firearm owner. And in some cases, some of them are just absolutely terrified of them. And then when they come into the class, and then they're slowly indoctrinated in terms of the fact that it's just a mere tool and that there's some fundamental rules. And if you obey these rules, nothing bad can happen. And they suddenly become more familiar with it. And then as we proceed on through the end of the day, they're shooting at a gun range, shooting at a target, man. And I tell you, a lot of them, particularly women, I'm getting a ton of women now. A lot of women are like, wow, I am just really surprised that this thing this experience was nowhere near as bad as I thought it was. What in the world stopped me from doing this sooner?
Really?
Really.
Wow. And there's got to be a spillover effect. If you're talking about first-time gun owners, these are people who are talking to their friends, their coworkers, family, many of whom I'm guessing are also non-gun owners, and they're going to be talking about their experience, which I think it has to have some sort of ripple effect.
Well, we definitely hope so. One thing that we've noticed, at least from what the media has been saying, at least since Christmas, gun sales have been skyrocketing. I attribute that to the things we're seeing with the national economy, and definitely with the local economy here. Folks are really concerned with crime, and they're hearing about it every day. They're seeing it on the news every day. They're hearing about these atrocious response rates. you got to do something. If you can't leave town, then you have to make the best of it, hunker down, and make plans to take care of yourself and keep your family safe.
Again, Rick Hector from Rick's Firearm Academy of Detroit. And Rick, if we've got listeners out there in the Detroit area who are interested in becoming right to carry holders, how backed up are you right now in terms of your classes, and how do folks get a hold of you?
Well, there are openings, but the classes fill up fast. My dates are listed on the website. I'm at www.detroitccw.com, all one word, detroitccw.com. Give us a call. We'll talk about it, and if firearms ownership is right for you, we'll get you signed up for a class.
All right. Listen, Rick, glad you can be with us on the program tonight, sir. Be safe, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to be safe. I'm going to be here for the next time I get to be on the show.